fourth meeting, third in person. So we're going to get started this evening. We've got a few more options to look at. We're getting near the end before the PIM, before we get to the real end. So with that, what I'll do is I'll just flip it over to Eleanor, my co-chair for the BRC, for the land acknowledgement, and then we'll jump right into it.
Thanks, Fred. Good to see everybody. Begin by acknowledging the land, responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us life. The land upon which HCSB is situated is on the ancestral treaty and title lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Michizagi Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Michizagi territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HTSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights, while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land. Chief Miigwech.
Thank you, Eleanor. All right, so as I mentioned, we're getting real close to the next step. So tonight, I'm hoping we are down a few more options, and then next meeting, what we're going to focus on is let's pick our three to bring forward to the PIM, or two. And then I'll just give you guys kind of a brief rundown of what that public information is going to look like. And after that, we'll meet one last time. We'll come together to see what kind of option or options we want to present to the Boundary Review Steering Committee. And then that will go forward to exec and then the Board of Trustees for final review and approval, which will be probably going to board for sometime in June. So we're getting there, guys. Tonight, as per usual, we're going to go through some housekeeping items. We're going to look at the options that we kind of whittled down as of last week. I just want to reconfirm that we're all on the same page on what we removed. Look at some new options, which were further iterations of what was recommended. And then from that, we'll have a breakout session, discuss which ones we want to keep, if there's a couple more refinements, and then hopefully by the end of the night, we'll be able to have documented what we're keeping, what we're not keeping, and what we're moving ahead with. So in terms of housekeeping items, so we just want to confirm that we are in fact deleting 5A, 5B, 7A, 7B, and 9, as well as I think 8 were there to delete, but we'll confirm tonight. We're going to go through generally some of the additional emails that we received since our last meeting. I think it's well over 20 this time, so it's quite active, a lot of concerns, a lot of questions. So I do definitely appreciate you guys kind of handling that on your ends. I know it's probably a lot of pressure. Just a couple scope clarifications. There's a couple options that are starting to get out of scope, and we got to kind of pull it back in just to make sure that we're being careful around what we were approved to do and set out to do. And then we'll be looking at some other options tonight. So we have a total of 3 new options. And then a little bit more than that, we've got 11B as well. So 4 new options, as well as 12. So lots to review. In terms of the meeting notes, I think we circulated them. So again, if you can confirm whether or not you have any concerns with the minutes that were taken, and if they are clearly what was recorded. If there's any issues, let us know. We will amend, repost. So as per our last meeting, I think where we landed is, like I mentioned earlier, we really didn't like the 7s. Those were the ones, if you recall, that we're talking about Maple West and moving around. And we heard a lot from the community to say, like, let's remove those. So we didn't want to jump the gun, but in the back of our minds, we knew that we were taking those out anyways. The 5 series we removed. The 9s were definitely ones that we weren't too happy with. 8, I'd say we're pretty much middle of the pack. So I'm thinking we're pretty lukewarm on the whole Pineland FI issue. So we'll have another look at it tonight, but I think that's probably where we're going to land. Then we had option 1, 10, 4, and 6 that I think were generally well received. 6 we're not presenting again tonight. We're just going to present 6B, which was the further iteration or improvement on 6. So we won't go over that one again. And then the other ones we'll just discuss. So, and again, just the inverse here is I think we kind of agreed that these are the ones we should be looking at. So when we're talking about which ones we remove, that's where 6 is kind of landing too. So a little bit of an overlap there. 8, again, is middle of the pack. So I'm thinking that's maybe where we're going to land. And when we move a little bit higher down, like I think definitely 10, 1, and 4. 10, I want to clarify though. I think generally what I understood from our last meeting was that on the English side of things, we weren't too happy about it, but we definitely like the FI direction on how we were unifying 4 words. and dealing with that. Because we definitely had those zones across from Brant in front of a Central Public School that, given their walkers, it's kind of a tough sell to say, let's send you to either Lakeshore or Tom Thompson. So we kept that in the back of our minds as we acknowledged kind of what the viewpoints. I'm not going to go through all this, but I'll say we had a very resounding voice that moving zone 3, which is the one that's pretty much adjacent to the QEW going all the way down the beach road, kind of the tail end of Burlington there. Like, there was a lot of concerns, a lot of stress around that going to Kings Road. So, and I think we all acknowledged that in our last meeting. That's why it was one of the ones that were removed. So we've kind of updated the website, so you know, so we've kind of categorized the active options, the ones that are up for review, and then the ones that were removed to try to attenuate some of those concerns from the community. So I think we heard loud and clear, like, we're not moving ahead with this. The K5 and 6 to 12 option, that one came out. So everyone was talking about that one. We haven't even done it yet, but we'll present it this evening. We can have that chat too. We have some clarification too. We have reached out to our Burlington Central administration. So we'll get into a little bit of that tonight of, you know, the realities of what it actually looks like and what it could look like. And again, your standards in terms of legacy exemptions, which are all things we're going to be talking about. And hopefully the next meeting we have, that's where, once we have a good, you know, few options, like 3, that's where we can start talking about how we're going to transition this in and reduce the impacts to existing students. So that was generally what we were hearing about. Otherwise, it was a lot of what we heard before. So a lot around the 7 to 12 model, concerns around that, the 6 to 12 and things like that is what we heard. So not so different than what was discussed previously. Yeah, so a few other things here. Area 11, I think, Michelle, we had a couple requests for zone 11 to go down to Central. But again, this one's one that we've really heard a more resounding voice that it really does stick with Tecumseh. So this one we've heard a couple of them, but not too many. And then there was one for FI at Lakeshore that came in, but Lakeshore is a bit too small to be accommodating FI. So we're a little bit hard pressed, but understandably so why it came in. In terms of the scope here, option 6B, which we'll be reviewing tonight. One of the things I want to clarify, like, again, I told you we'd always look at the options, we'll run them, but then I'll give you a straight up opinion of what I think about them. I think anything that is like the suggestion to remove 7 and 8s from Aldershot in full, which is what 6 came into, I think that's I think that is pretty much out of scope of the review. The review is really primarily to deal with the southwest Burlington area that's highlighted here. There is some indirect impacts that would have happened with Aldershot in terms of the removal of zones 1 and 2. We did admittedly explore some options with Maplehurst receiving 7 and 8s, but more so in a limited factor in order to accommodate for more continuous cohorts and not making them travel as far. To go in, and I'll still show you the option, obviously, but our recommendation is that this one should definitely not go forward, because if we are to, I think it would be beholden on us to go back to the community and say, now this is, we're making it a much wider issue, because then we have to approach Tyndega, which is a community that I don't think is really aware that they could be impacted as much. And then the Aldershot community too, we'd be essentially removing quite a few students from that school. So we got to almost reopen and say the scope has changed, which I think is not really the intent of this review. And as staff, I'd say myself, planning wise, as we'll see in the numbers, it's not really something I want to support at this point in time, given the impact it would have on Aldershot High School, or as a 7 to 12 school. But I will show you the numbers nonetheless, so you can potentially reach the same conclusion as I and the team. So same criteria, we'll get into that. Before we jump into it, any questions before I continue on? Wonderful. All right. So just our active options, to go over them again. I'm going to kind of glaze through these because I think you've seen them many a times, especially option 1. So again, option 1 is removing zones 11 and 10 to the north. We're trying to shift that away, take some pressure off, make some room at Burlington Central, make some room at Tom Thompson. This one, the numbers for Central look good. Lakeshore looked good. Tom Thompson, again, this remains a concern of mine that now we're removing too many students from the school, which might create some issues in terms of the number of staffing that is available and the resources that are available. In discussing with staff at the school, they could see maybe a little bit of attenuation of their pressures, but to this extent, I think may not be well received, I'd say. So I think they're happy with what they have, so it's not as much of an issue as we initially thought. Tecumseh, we do see a drop of enrollment.
Sorry, if the staffing from Tom Thompson, if it went to Central, would the teachers not just shift to Central?
Absolutely, no. What I'm saying there, no, that's a fair point. To clarify, what I'm saying on that point is the more students you have, the more teachers you have. The more teachers you have, technically, the more resources you have for that school community. So you have more options for extracurriculars, for clubs, for supports. Because once you start hitting some certain total thresholds for a school, you get more certs, you get a VP. So that's kind of the concern they're having, is if we drop you down to 220 level, which is typically where I get concerned for that size, you might be losing some of those things. So it was kind of weighing out the portables versus supports, and all else being equal, which one's more valuable to the community? I'd probably start arguing that it's the latter.
So the building capacity for that's 219. They're currently at 426. With
4 or
8,
5.
sorry?
4 or 5.
Okay, sorry, I'm just reading.
4.6 is capacity.
Okay, but but with 8 portables, can you give us an idea of what staff would feel more comfortable with?
What I've in discussions with, I'd say it's what I just said. Like, they're in discussing it with staff right now, it doesn't seem like their pressures are as big of an issue. And I would say the 219 is somewhat artificially low, in that 219 you have a lot of resource room. So as far as a loading standpoint, I would classify them as a 12-to-1 because they're 650 square feet under the ministry regs. We're using them probably closer to like 20-to-1. So realistically, I think we're more at the 280 in terms of capacity by the number of classrooms we have. It's just they're smaller rooms, so they have a smaller loading. That's not how we're using them. So the functional capacity, and sorry, I'm getting really technical here, so bear with me. Some of these rooms, I wouldn't classify as full classrooms, so that's why it's so low. But if I were to give all of the different rooms, which, there's 3 additional rooms that we would give a loading of 23, it would increase the capacity. So realistically, like, they're doing fine inside of the school is what I'm hearing.
Right, just to clarify. What is the ideal student population at Tom Thompson? Thank you.
350 to 400. If we're talking by the numbers, disregarding utilization, 400. I love that question. Yeah, that's why we.
So, but when you said that they are fine, the staff, what is fine exactly? Like, the staff are saying that they don't want less students? Is that what you're saying?
That's why we're kind of getting that to the point where we're starting to wait. So again, this is. No, it's not that. So I acknowledge, like, we entered this and what we heard is Tom Thompson was significantly over capacity. We knew that there was a number of split cohorts throughout Southwest Burlington in terms of the transitions from 6 to 7, from 8 to 9. It's kind of every which way. So we embarked in this whole thing to let's look at what the utilization is. Is it a big issue? Are there better solutions? Can we reorganize this in such a way that makes sense, so that there's better pathways, that we're dealing with better utilizations? Can we get rid of these split cohorts? And what I'm starting to get at this point is I would love to not have to pay for 7 portables. That's the fiscal side of me. If you recall, when we looked at the criteria, we don't really care about the fiscal. We care about the student experience. We care about long-term sustainable boundaries and stability for the community. So in putting those as the criteria, yes, we embarked in this because I saw that there was an opportunity to maybe rebalance enrollment, but now I'm realizing at what cost. So if the cost is that I'm going to impact student experience and we're not going to better anything by moving the number of students, because that's something we added tonight is, And all these options we're looking at, how many students are we moving at the end of the day? And I'm starting to look at the impact that that's having, and it's what are we gaining from this? So I think what we embarked on is we looked at it, we put every option on the table, and there's a couple more to look at. And what we've realized is, all else being equal, I think there's still work that needs to be done. We still need to get rid of these split cohorts. We still need to align things. That still needs to get done. But is it really worth going through a whole realignment of FI just to rebalance and remove 6 portables? I think what I'm getting at now, and I think what we're all kind of hopefully getting to the point, is maybe it's not worth it, because the impact to the students is probably too great in order to just throw everything up in the air. So that's kind of, and again, ultimately, you guys can recommend what you want, but that's the sense I'm getting from what our community's saying, the stressors that are coming, and what the ultimate outcomes are. So anyway, 1, 2, 3. Sorry,
I'm one?
you were
Oh,
one,
okay. Sorry, but doesn't the fiscal reality of the board affect student experience? Like, my question is that I understand this process. I think community consultation is important, but we like looking at this from a logistical standpoint, which does involve some fiscal realities. Aren't we, I just hope this isn't going to be the loudest voice, gets listened to, and that we are going back to look at the logistics, because to not consider the fiscal reality, to not consider the cost of all of those portables. I understand moving these kids, it affects them, but also paying this cost for these portables affects every student in Halton. So I'm a little confused. If you could clarify just the removing the fiscal from student experience.
It's not entirely removing it. I think it's just not one that, as I weigh as importantly as that. I think the reality we have in Southwest Burlington is it's the facilities that we have is the big question. If I were in any other location where we had a K-8 model, this would be a lot easier. We wouldn't have had 4 meetings. We probably would have been done after the first 2. The fact that we're having to deal with middle schools, with schools that are smaller than what we would like them to be, the fact that we're having to bounce students around left and right, I think that's what creates the challenge right now. And to make this work, we almost have to upend a number of zones. And then we're going to talk about legacy exemption. We're going to talk about transportation, grandfathering, the phasing it in. And by the time we're done all this, we created a lot of disruption. We're still going to have costs for portable, or not portables, but we're still going to have costs for transportation. The portables, they're still floating around here and there. So we're taking it from one area and distributing it to others, and we're still getting close to that line. So,
and you don't think that some of these problems will persist into the future?
I think they will, but I think the clear solution, as I said in the last meeting, is we need a PAR. I know that's not popular, and the pupil accommodation review. Schools need to be closed in this area to get rid of the surplus capacity. And what that allows us to do is then put in the case to get a K-8 proper in Southwest Burlington. That's what we're lacking right now. We don't need 300 pupil play schools. We need something that's more standard, like a 650 and up. We get the K-8. We get it to Tecumseh in Southwest. That's what I'm looking for. Because right now, between the QE and Guelph Line, we don't have any K-8s. So we can't offer that. And that's the issue that we're running into. So how do we deal with that? And in the meantime, our hands are tied because we don't have the tools to do that. So in the interim, how do we do the best we can, minimizing disruption and hoping that eventually we do get to a PAR situation or another tool that we can use to improve the facility. So I'll tell you right now, and it's come up in some of these communications, and I haven't forgotten 2 and 3. If I were to ask for capital priorities funding to build an addition or rebuild a school, they're going to look at me and say, McQuendam's half empty, Pineview's half empty. You've got space here and there. And they're going to say, no, it's not going to be a priority. The only thing I can look at is if it's like renewing a facility that has a high renewal rate, but as a board, we've been maintaining critical components, so our renewal isn't that bad. So I don't really have a case to get money to build a new facility. So the answer is I need to demonstrate a way to do it, and I don't have the tools right now. So again, I hear your frustration if we did all this work and it comes out to we've done minor changes, but I think what we've done at least is we've exhausted all of the potential options. And if we're not comfortable in doing all of these changes for an outcome that's marginally better than the status quo, then is it really worth it? I think it was worth going through the exercise because now we know, and then we can direct ourselves in terms of the future of We acknowledge these are small changes, but next steps is the second we can, we should be jumping in and reassessing this and getting better accommodations in Southwest Burlington with the tools available to us. I'm gonna shut up now.
No, how long does the firework take?
It would take the same as a boundary. It's a glorified boundary.
Like
I'd
just to affect, like to
well, right now there's a moratorium. We're not permitted to undertake one. So that's the problem is like, I've been holding off on doing this for quite some time. And I was just hoping eventually we get a park because I think that's the real outcome we need. And a park doesn't necessarily mean a full closure. Like you might not end up in that situation either, but I think you need to have all of that on the table. Seeing that it's continued on, I think it was worthwhile to embark in this to see, okay, well, is there something we can do in the meantime? And that's what we're doing, just figuring that out. So if we do get into a par, I'd say it's a year probably to get through the process, the approvals. And then if it's reliance on ministry capital priorities approval, then that's a little bit of a black box, but it's usually they do annual calls for them. And then if you're successful, then you're probably looking at a few years out in terms it's full until it's fully implemented. Sorry, I just had, and then we'll jump over.
I was pretty much going to say what you were going to say. My concern with the maintaining the portables too is just what resources are we pulling from that all students have access? Like we're so short on special education resources. If that's getting tied up in portables, that's not benefiting anybody. Right? We have so many kids that need, and I don't know from a budgetary perspective, like they're probably pulled from completely different budgets.
Mhm.
But if there's a way we can free up that capex or that capital to actually put back into hiring special education resources, like
It's a different pot of funding, I'd say.
yeah,
So it's different line items. And no, it's fair. And that's part of it all. So again, it's balancing the fiscal responsibility of the board and what we're doing in terms of mitigating portables, which initially going into it, I was like, we have an opportunity here.
I think we're all aligned. We don't want the government to take over HTSB, so whatever we can do.
I'll tell you 6 portables and I might eat my words one day. I don't think that's going to be it. It's like we're doing all we can. And I think this is part of the work is this a cost that, you know, benefits the students regardless? Because I think on the opposite end, sure, there's a cost to the portables, but again, those portables might get sprinkled elsewhere. Like we saw Central as an example. We're still bumping them up. They're still going to need portables. Tom Thompson still needs portables. So again, we're incurring all of this change and what are we really getting out of it? Can I guarantee you're going to save 6 portables worth? I will not guarantee you 100%. You might get 4 worth or whatnot. And again, I ask the question to myself, is it really worth doing that? Or can we look at other things to improve the situation at Tom Thompson to say, well, let's just consider those classrooms as just permanent for the time being, as they're viable classrooms for that particular facility. All right.
I was just gonna say, if Tom Thompson isn't the major issue that it started as, then what it sounds like is when we go through these projections and we look at places like Lakeshore status quo right now, which is way under, that's actually a bigger concern. Because if you're saying lower numbers reduces resources, then it seems to me like we could take a little bit of pressure off Tom Thompson by areas, like moving a small area or something like that. But it seems like the biggest concern is actually, like in this projection, Tecumseh is low, Lakeshore is low. There's
Correct,
quite a
like,
few.
sorry to interrupt, but like what you're saying about what they don't want and having low students and low resources, we already have. So to say to us that, you know, like they don't want to lose students because they'll lose stuff, we are already in that predicament.
students.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We do.
Yeah,
We need,
yeah.
we need
All the
students.
stuff we were looking
We don't
at
have
for
a vice
3
principal.
weeks,
We
Tom
need
Thompson was
certs.
the
We're
one
in that
priority.
position.
It was our lead, yeah. But as we're,
We worked on Tom Thompson being the primary. So there's other proposals we looked at, we threw away, may have been better proposals if we weren't concerned with Tom Thompson. We've done nothing but Tom Thompson. Now we're down to 3 or 4 choices, and we may have bypassed the real choice in the first 10.
I'll assure you that you probably didn't, because every time that we've taken alleviated pressure off of Tom Thompson to make room for FI at Central, we're having we're pretty much having the inverse. So I'm taking it away from Central, I'm sending it to Tom Thompson. And that's a fair point. Don't get me wrong, I'm not disagreeing with you. But a lot of times, like we're moving zones 5 and 6 out of Central, which is across the street, and we're uplifting Tom Thompson, or we're sending him to Lakeshore. And every time we do these changes, it's like, we're disrupting students when they're walking to school. So now we're increasing transportation, or we're disrupting zone 4. Like every movement that we make to balance things out, it just has the opposite effect of creating a disbenefit to that school, which I can't say one outweighs the other. So because this is so tight and we have so many schools and it's so proximate to one another, it's like every little movement you make, it just check balance, and it creates the issue. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't think we've expended all the options. We moved zones 3 to Kings Road. To balance out Lakeshore. We've moved more zones to Tom Thompson, moved zones out of Tom Thompson, like Rolling Meadows, Clarksdale. Like we pretty much hit every zone with all the options. I think at the end of the day is we still have a little bit of work. Like again, we got more options to look at tonight, but I'd assure you that I don't think we missed out on any. Like everything's been thrown on the table, and we've been getting a lot of engagement from the community that's explaining what works and what doesn't.
We were looking at,
point is being, we may have voted against an option because we were focused on Tom Thompson, and it might have been a good option.
Exactly.
That's what the point is.
For Lakeshore.
Yeah, but from the ones from memory, like Tecumseh, we did not like FI at Tecumseh. So that was options too.
I'm just saying that we were concentrating when we were looking at the field. We were following your lead. This was old school. You were concentrating on we had to get the levels down, and now you're showing us, oh, you're okay with the levels. So I
think we can alleviate some pressure. No, it's fair. It's like I said, last meeting we were talking about what a good enrollment is, and maybe we should go through the options too. But I think the point I'm making right now is we're like in this instant here, we're impacting 265 students, and this is excluding any transfers from grade to grade. And the outcome is we're creating more empty space at Tecumseh. We're we're adding some more to Lakeshore, but we're adding portables down the road at Lakeshore. So the cost we had at Tom Thompson, we're now adding to Lakeshore. Tom Thompson, we're bringing down to a sustainable level, but we're going to get to portables there too, because we can't shave off enough. Tecumseh, we've removed a number of students out of it. Central's fine. Kings Road, we removed some, but again, we want to keep them proximate. So like I said, all of this it wasn't just about Tom Thompson, it was about unifying cohorts and making boundaries that made sense. Tom Thompson was definitely the one that was sticking out because it definitely, like a utilization standpoint, I agree with you. It seems odd, but then listening to all the comments and where we got to, after I'm like, is it really worth doing all of these changes? I'm not sure it is.
Bottom line, no one really wants to change. No one's going to want to move.
Correct.
It becomes a situation. We were trying, when we were looking at the options, I believe we were looking at all the options. I know in our group, we were looking at number of students, bringing a school level up so they would have more resources. We looked at all of the options, and I don't know whether they're being looked at this way. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's fair. We can, I get back to,
These are costs per student to have them portable versus in a school. You know that number?
no.
Alternatively, what's the cost of maintaining a portable?
Portable's about 15 a year for leasing it, less so if we own it. And I don't recall if we lease or own these ones. First time setup, yeah. So if we're having to relocate them, there's the cost of installing that the next space. So
And then I have another question. If we're talking about split cohorts, is the only current split cohort right now, if we're staying status quo, zone 9 and 10, when they go to 7, 8? And I think that there's another split cohort in zones 1 and 2.
1 and 2, yeah.
So those are the main split cohorts in status quo right now.
status quo, like Michelle, I think so, yeah. There's the 9-10, there's Tecumseh 2 right now for the FI. There's some cleanup to be done there too.
Okay.
There's 12 as well that currently right now it's going to Tecumseh. So yeah, there's a few things that need to be cleaned up here. Wait, and then
Go back to the topic of PAR. You said there's a moratorium on PARs right now. I assume that's because of the provincial government.
I have a look at so I know.
Or, yes.
since 2018, yeah.
So if we agree that downtown is a new school, and truthfully, I think our facilities are in dire straits. I know Tom Thompson, for example, is like a perfect example. I assume we should be advocating to the province to allow for a plan, or what would be the process?
I'd say yes, is my, so this is my opinion, strictly my opinion. We have a lot of empty spaces. They're aging communities and we're under dire straits financially. Portables are pricey, but not half as pricey as a half empty school. So if we want to find true savings and economies, then I think it's a reality. And I look forward to them coming back so that we can do the work that we need to do. And it's also a great way to renew older facilities in a community.
Is that what's, I assume that is holding back like central?
Fred, can I say something?
1 second, Amy.
Last week that there were plans, but they were ahead.
We've been envisioning a K-12 campus, much like it is now, but renewing the entirety of the sites is in the plans and reducing capacity throughout. And to get the money for that, there needs to be a reduction in capacity because we do have some spread outs, but it's all in little spaces everywhere. But the ministry still sees it as there's empty space, fill that up before we fund any kind of capital. And I'll tell you right now, like the odds of us getting capital priorities funding in this situation is too many vacancies. That's exactly it. Sorry, Amy.
So I just want to give people a bit of background on the school closure situation. 8.5 years ago, the provincial government, which was Liberal at the time, put the moratorium into place shortly after we voted at our board to close Bateman and Pearson. And the reason that they put a moratorium in place was because they wanted to review the process, and they were going to come back and put in a more engaging process to ensure that all communities were appropriately heard during a school closure process. 10 months later, they got voted out and the Ford government was elected. The Ford government has not restored or looked at the school closure process. There is no existing provincial framework for us to close a school. And recently, there have been boards put under supervision. Those boards that are under supervision are being given permission for the supervisor to close schools. But the rest of the boards in Ontario still don't have permission to close schools, and we don't have a process for doing so. I went to the province's budgetary consultations last month, and my number one ask, and this is not just for Halton, this is for all of Ontario, is for permission for us to close schools and a process that is fair for us to do in order to make this happen. Because when we are unable to close schools, students get into situations where their facility is beyond repair, where the school is only being partially used to educate students. But whether the school is half full or 100% full, the cost for us to keep it open is the same. So instead of having funds that we can divert into classrooms, we are paying for half-used facilities. No one likes to close a school. I know that better than anyone. Bateman was the high school in Ward 5, and I am the trustee for Ward 5. It is not fun to close a school, but having the ability to do so makes a big difference for a school board. And it has now been 8.5 years since any school board in Ontario has been able to do this. So the question was asked, how do we get the province to put this back on the front burner? The same way that we get the province's attention on any issue, by writing letters, by making phone calls, by approaching your local MPP, and being very clear that what is happening right now is not fair to students, and that trustees have been asking for this ability for the whole time that this province has been under the Doug Ford government, and without the ability to close schools, we are going to be having boundary reviews that move kids around in order to try and make better use of our facilities without really solving the real problem, which is that some of our facilities are no longer providing an equitable education for students. And I know you're probably not going to like hearing what I just said, because I can hear there's dead quiet in the room right now. But I'm telling you, I've been a trustee for 16 years. And what's happening right now in education, due to the way that the ministry is funding education, is not equitable for areas that have declining enrollment. Sorry.
Thanks. Ed. Oh, you're good. You're good.
So we are not probably going to be able to close schools anytime soon. So
Ish.
what I would like you to address is just the fact that I'm still stuck on the part where they don't want to, like Tom Thompson doesn't want to lose students. They want to stay where they are because they don't want to have the problems that some schools already have. And I don't understand why, when we just heard that something, that does hurt us is having half full schools, why we would leave that situation when Lakeshore is begging for students, that and a vice principal and certs and all of the things, and that school we're going to just keep it the way it is. Like I
didn't say that. Sorry, let me clarify. I'm not saying we don't do anything. We need to do something. All I'm saying is that in option one, where we're bringing Lakeshore Woods, sorry, where we're bringing, my goodness, Tom Thompson all the way down to 200, and then we're uplifting Lakeshore. All we're doing is we're moving the problem around. And that's what I want to avoid doing. So a very roundabout way, what I'm saying is I don't like option one anymore. And maybe we have to look at other options where it's not as much of an aggressive, and don't, like I said, guys, I love this discussion because I think it's an important one to have, because call me out on it. That's fine. I brought you out here. We have to look at a lot of things, and this isn't an easy one. And that's why I've been trying to push it off for so long. But we're at a point now where it's like, okay, we got to look at something, because I was hoping PARs would come sooner. We're still waiting. Let's make some changes. I had a question here, and then you're next.
I just think what I'm hearing is our role now is to try to balance enrollment where we can and decrease split cohorts.
Decrease, yeah. That's
what we would like. Like that would be the goal of this committee.
I think that's what's balancing all of the criteria and the priorities that we've identified and we've discussed. Is if we're balancing all of it, it's little changes, I think, is probably where we're going to end up with. And we have options where we do just rip it all apart and start anew. But I just want that in the back of your mind, is like, how many kids are we impacting, and is the outcome more beneficial than where we're at now, and how much more, and is it worth the impact? I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves, because one of the most active boundary reviews I've been part of, I've never had this many emails. So there is a lot of stress in this. So that's why I'm asking myself, is it worth doing all this, and to what ends? And if it does, in fact, yes, this is a better outcome, a much better outcome, then great. If it's like a somewhat better outcome, is it worth doing, or do we wait to do the real work, which is the PAR? And that's balancing out those interests, I guess.
Two things. First of all, having this total moves on this summary is very helpful. So thank you so much for including that. The other question that I have is, if we're talking about balancing enrollment, let's take, for instance, zone 9. That's a fairly large zone, right? Is it possible, is it part of this scope to say, okay, instead of zone 9 going from, what is this? Woodward to Fairview, hey, we're going to split zone 9 in half, and it's going to be zone 9A and zone 9B, which is sort of north of Prospect versus south of Prospect to sort of help balance that, because I can tell you that's where I live and there's lots of kids in that area, right? And so taking all of zone 9 and moving it to Tecumseh, for instance, might out of balance, make the enrollment out of balance. But if it's only half the kids, it might help. Is that something that would be within the scope? Is that an option for us to discuss?
We can talk about it. I'd say we can talk about it. I'm not going to shut you down now. And I think let's get into that. The concern I have is, as an example, and this is why it looks big, but we're in reality, like this is not a huge area and they're all little pockets. So if I'm slicing it here, the problem is I've got Guelph line across. And they're,
It's not necessarily the density or the size of the area, it's the density of the families in the area.
that's what I'm saying though.
Where kids live.
No, but that's fair. But well, what I'm not, and I completely agree with you. It's like there might be like 100 kids here and 2 kids here. Like I don't know if it makes a difference, and I don't know the question. But the thing I'm looking at here is we divided these zones in such a way where there's a geographical logic to it. So in this case here, to send it to Tecumseh, you got to cross Guelph line. Now all these kids are suddenly bused when they can walk to school, and then we get into another 6-5 situation where, you know, you can walk to school. Now I'm sending you to a further school. And that's the point where I'm like, okay, then are we really benefiting? But fair point. Like if you want to look at it, I think we could probably whip it up pretty quick to see where the kids are at.
I'll just add to that. We live in Head Forest for no reason other than numbers. Half the kids go to Florence Mears and are bused. Those kids could easily walk to CH. It is what it is. Like those decisions have been made elsewhere in Burlington because of balancing numbers.
And those were sorry.
That happened. It was reversed, like it flip flopped over 15 years, right? So,
And a lot of times that's because we hit the max
Yeah.
capacity. So this is like, we're trying to rebalance
Yeah.
and yeah.
I'm saying like if there's precedent that's been set, so it's not like we're reinventing.
We're not, but those are out of necessity. Now here, the question is this necessary? And that's where I'm questioning it. Last one, then let's move on to the options because I'm going to break my promise of being out here before 9 o'clock.
Just a question about the zones. When were these zones established? What's the timeline?
We reviewed them when before we started the review, and a lot of these are historic zones that have been cut up in the past. So zone 12, for instance, has probably been around for some time, and it was moved in a previous review. So
Go back to that comment about, say, splitting 9. Like the Fairview corridor and Plains Road is supposed to be all high density, right? Very high density from a zoning perspective.
Mhm.
Like, have we accounted for that from population growth, and do we need to relook at the numbers in the zone?
they're accounted for, yes. That's kind of the tail end. You see that Tom Thompson will start shooting up again. That's where that's coming from. So that's way down the road. And I hope that in 5+ years we can finally close schools again because I laugh because I don't want to cry. Yeah, sorry. I laugh because I don't want to cry. Let's just say that. Okay, so you now know my feelings on option 1. Mixed bag. Let's go to option 4. You guys are okay with that? Great discussion though. Option 4, if you recall, this one here again, zones 1 and 2, that's a constant. So this is one, like, we need to fix that. There's no reason we should be shipping kids off on the other side. We heard it loud and clear from zone 3, as for instance, how they don't think it's viable. So I think it's beholden on us to deal with zone 1 and 2, bring them back in the community. So we're still getting some work done. Still need to get some things done. So we haven't done all this for now. I just want to assure you. Zone 1 and 2, we're bringing back into east of QEW area. We made some alignment changes here. So for zones 10 and 9, we want to make sure that we're bringing them into Burlington Central as opposed to sending them over to Tecumseh. So we're lining up these cohorts so they can go with their Tom Thompson counterparts for 7 and 8. We are moving zones 6 and 5 to Lakeshore. So it's bumping up the numbers to Lakeshore. But we're removing them from Burlington Central, which is cross street. They can walk. So keep that in mind. Zones 3 and 4 stay with Central. And zone 12 still is with Tecumseh, but I figure if we ever advance this, we should definitely fix that part. We're looking at about an impact of 180 kids between English and F5. For F5, the biggest changes were shifting over the F5 program over to Burlington Central. And zones 1 and 2 here, we're moving them from Maplehurst over to Burlington Central. So in this case here, those are the biggest changes to come. So we still have some misalignment with our with Nelson. So that doesn't necessarily incorporate what we had talked about with option 10 there and aligning those, but could be a further enhancement at a later date. With this option, because we're sending so much to Central, we are kind of blowing past its capacity a little bit. So we're probably going to be seeing some additional portables being added here. So to my earlier point, we're taking away from Tom Thompson, and in some of these cases, we're just adding them elsewhere. Lakeshore, we definitely have the improvements that you were looking for in terms of overall numbers. So we're bringing it closer to the high 200s, and down the road, you're going to have some growth coming into with some intensification. Tom Thompson, with the relocation of FI, we do see, and sending some additional kids over, we do see more kids staying at Tom Thompson, not going to Burlington Central. So overall, their numbers are looking pretty good. But they do lose the FI program in this scenario. Tecumseh, their enrollment improves slightly, so not a huge issue there. So overall good. Burlington Central is good. Kings Road and Maplehurst pretty much the same. Minor impacts to their numbers. We're just fixing that zone 1 and 2 error. So overall, like option 4, I think it achieves some of the things. We're still moving quite a number of kids around, but not as much as option 1, and the outcomes are generally okay. Right. Option 8, this one I think was on the table for removal. It was kind of middle of the pack, but if you recall, this is one where we're doing a few shifts. Again, zone 10 here, which is currently going to Tom Thompson. We're sending that over to Tecumseh. Zones 9, we're just realigning for our 7 and 8, so that will be going to Central High. Zone 6 is going from Burlington Central over to Tom Thompson, offset some of the declines from Zone 10. Zone 5 is coming out of Central to go to Lakeshore. Same with Zone 12. Pardon me. And then Zones 1 and 2 from Kings Road. This is the part that I think people don't like as much, but in doing all these changes, then we're sending all of FI to Pineland so that we have one FI school in the south. Then the question is where are they going for high school? So we'd have to think about that. I think generally speaking, like the numbers look good for Central. Lakeshore's improved. Tom Thompson, again, quite a bit of a cut to them. So maybe lower than what we would like. In doing these changes to Tecumseh, it is booming it quite past their current capacity. So we're going to be seeing portables here. Burlington Central Elementary, we're creating a lot of space because we're taking away the 7 and 8s from them. We're sending them all to Pineland for a 2 to 8 FI experience. And Kings Road and Maplehurst somewhat changed. Sorry. Kings Road slightly changed. Maplehurst, we are seeing a bigger change. We don't expect, because 7 and 8s right now for Maplehurst are going to Burlington Central. I can't expect them to go all the way to Pineland. Not Pineland.
Yeah.
I stopped naming things Pine something. We got Pine View, Pineland, Pinehurst. But now we have 7 and 8s at Maplehurst because we don't expect them to go all the way. For FI? No, we removed Aldershot FI. No, fair question.
Then they're split from their cohort for K for 2 to 6, but we have, I mean,
My concern is it removes F5 from the downtown community.
Yeah. It's a long way to go.
how much is buses for, how much would the busing cost?
Romer, I think right now Lakeshore's probably bus to Tom Thompson. So you would probably be adding the entirety of FI at Tom Thompson right now as busts, call it 3 buses. You are. We did cut it off quite a bit, so you'd probably be looking at a couple buses worth. I think the distance is really it would be a hard sell. Sorry, what was that? Yeah. Well, we said we'd look at it, so I think so. Like having experience in doing consolidations in South Burlington, even the distance between I guess Cumberland all the way to Brant was a big distance for some. So this is pretty much end to end. But I think this is one that, and I think, well, we had that.
No, but for the Pinelands, put it on. Have Humvee as your 2 to 8 FI school.
But what do we do at Pine Lake? 'Cause it's single track.
Then you make it your It's fine, it's fine.
It's like one of those like really crazy Rubik's cubes where you can never really, that's, you can tell there's been more whites in my beard over the last few. So anyway, that's option 8. Pineland looks great in terms of numbers. I'll say that. So improvements there, but again, I'm questionable whether they're all going to go, even though we cut quite a bit. So.
There's no FI there.
No, it was.
No, there used to be FI 7 and 8. Is that what you're saying? The numbers were so low that we couldn't sustain the program, so we brought them over to Burlington Central.
Right.
So that's why. So it was there, and then it tanked. So then we brought them all there, and there was a bunch of jumping around too because there's no secondary FI at Aldershot. So they'd have to go to Central anyway. So we did that review 3 years ago now, or 2?
This program moved 2 years ago.
Okay. So, but anyways, it was there, and we just didn't have the numbers. So yeah, fair question though.
So with this option 8, I noticed that you'd written on the first slide that 280 kids would get impacted. Is that 280?
Yes,
Okay, and for the previous option 4,
I think it was 180.
So option 1 is 260. This is 180. I'm also looking at that impact on where the community comes in and parents get impacted and children get impacted, right?
Well, and that's why we put these numbers in because we're nearing the end, and I'm starting to think like my mindset's changing as I'm hearing the community, and it's like, okay, well, how many kids am I moving, and what's the outcome? And it's like I think it's part of the considerations now is like, what are we doing with the outcome? All right, so that was option 8, which I'm thinking the one that we dumped. And option 10, I'm not going to go over this. I don't think we were happy with option 10 for the main reason that 6 and 5, I think, and we heard this loud and clear too in the recent round of comments, it's right across the street from Central. So that was the main issue that we had with this option.
Yeah, I think. As someone who lives in 25, if I had the choice of going to St. John versus having to walk all the way to Lakeshore, when I could just walk 2 minutes to Central, I'm gonna choose St. John as a parent.
I've heard that from a couple of families that live in 6.
Yeah,
Oh, especially zone 3. I heard that a lot.
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, yes.
So I heard from a couple of families that lived in zone 6, if they were rerouted to Lakeshore, that they would just do St. John's. Because they could walk to Central or Tom Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what.
In this case here, we're sending them to Tom
Right,
Thompson,
you know,
but
I mean-
it's fair play. It's the same thing, right? So yeah, it's, and admittedly, it's a tough sell.
And I could, like zone 6, like I could see moving to Tom Thompson, I could, but again, if I'm looking at a backyard of a school across, like if we could split some of these up, I know you said we are older, if you could look at the zones and split them in different ways, I think there might be another.
We'd have to find like the backyards to make sure. Pardon?
How many students would be involved in 6 and 5?
Do we have to take? I think it's a good chunk. I just don't remember off the top of my head. If you have the table, I think it's in the.
I think it's 18 and 5 and 31 and 6.
And that's English and FI or just so I don't have it in front of me right now.
That's the single. That's just a single track.
Go jump right in, Michelle. Huh? Oh. Lovely internet. Well, we'll get back to it. Let's table that one for now, but we'll get back to it. There's so
Question was.
the question was how many students are in zones 5 and 6? Yeah. remember, because we had talked about splitting that one down north-south, but I think it was there's no roadways. So it'd almost be like your neighbors going to one school and you're going to the other. Yeah, but more so like there's no north-south divide really. So that'd be the challenge, because it's more of an east-west. Again, like we can zoom in on the maps and look at them. But what we did like about option 10 was, again, we're fixing zones 1 and 2, and we aligned the FI components for Tecumseh, which had zones 11 and Tecumseh. We're sending them over to Pineland, which is where everyone else that's currently around this area here is going. There weren't that many in zone 11, so this is something we carried forward in the other options as well. Option wise, yeah, numbers, again, didn't quite achieve what we're looking for with all the changes in the shifts. So I think it was just more the alignment of FI that we liked last meeting when we discussed it, and that's how we created the next iterations of the options. Okay, so new options. All right, 6B. So this is the one that expanded on option 6, which saw the move of the Tyndega area up in this area here, over from Maplehurst to Clarksdale to make room for the 7 and 8s that would be removed out of Aldershot area or Aldershot school. Zone 1 and 2 would move, 3 and 4 would get out of Central and move over to Lakeshore. 10 and 9, we would take those 7 and 8s, and instead of going to Tecumseh, we would be sending them to Burlington Central. And yeah, that's the English changes. FI wise, all of this would go from Tom Thompson to Burlington Central, zones 1 and 2 from Maplehurst over to Central as well. And then unchanged here with Pineland. Projection wise in doing this, we definitely do increase the overall utilization at Central. Lakeshore sees an improvement with the additions of zone 3 and 4. Tom Thompson, we remove FI. We have a higher apportionment staying for English, so we stay around that 350 mark that we were looking at. At Tecumseh, we see a little bit of an increase. Long term, with growth being directed there, we do see some portables, but again, that growth, hopefully we have something that we can intervene with at a later date with the PARs we were talking about. Central Elementary looks good overall. Kings Road, not a huge change. Maplehurst, with the removal of Tyndega, then the transition in of 7 and 8s, it does increase quite drastically. So now we're accommodating all of the 7 and 8s in Aldershot. So Glenview 7 and 8s, Maplehurst 7 and 8s are now and King 7 and 8s are going to Maplehurst, which we get into some capacity issues after it's fully phased in. Kings Road, oh, wrong button. Aldershot, essentially the elementary, obviously we phase it out. The concern I have is now Aldershot as a facility, elementary and secondary combined. I go from a facility that's effectively full and I've just gutted it. So I've removed about 240 kids out of that mix, and I'm creating a lot of empty spaces, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on Maplehurst, which, albeit I'd argue it once probably was a K-8. We're creating quite a bit of pressure for a school that hasn't been equipped for quite some time. So Clarksdale sees definitely an improvement because we're sending Tyndega over to them. Rolling Meadows has a little bit of benefit from that as well. And in this case here, we're moving forgot to update the second one, 325 students in this option here. Yeah. So anyway, we looked at it, and again, back to my earlier recommendation, I think it's out of scope first and foremost, but secondly, like we're removing 7 and 8s, which are comfortably fitting within Aldershot at present, and we're moving Tyndega and everyone else just to fit it into Maplehurst, which I personally don't think is an ideal. A lot of moves, and I don't, which I'm fine with. It just I don't see the benefit. All right, so option 11 then. This scenario here, we're uplifting, or again, zones 1 and 2. I'm going to stop saying zone 1 and 2. We're moving them in every single option. So we'll just leave it at that. Zone 3 and 4, we're sending over to Lakeshore, so bumping them up a bit. Zones 10 here, there was some talk about, how 11 and 10 are pretty contiguous to one another. So we're moving them over to Tecumseh, zone 9 here. We have the 7 and 8s that are going to go to Burlington Central High. In zone 12, we're moving from Tecumseh over to Lakeshore, given that Guelph line divide, it makes sense. FI wise, again, just to align cohorts, and it's somewhat of an offshoot of option 10, like we talked about. So zone 11 and now 10 and Tecumseh will go from Tom Thompson FI to Pineland. So then they have a joint cohort going from Pineland to Nelson. So we don't have our grade 8s going from Nelson and Burlington Central anymore. Either you're east and north of the name of that road, but anyways, you're either going to Nelson or you're going to Burlington Central. Everybody goes hand in hand. Oh, I wasn't sure.
270 students.
Yeah. We're moving a lot. When we move F5 from Tom Thompson to Central, we are moving a lot of students. Like that's the reality. We can phase that in, but again, that just extends the time. So anyway, we're lining up cohorts. We're addressing some of the Central, like still has a pretty sustainable enrollment. Down the road, again, like that's when I hope we have an intervention where we can build something and close some facilities. Lakeshore, we bring them up a lot higher. So we're addressing some of those issues. I think we're taking too much away from Tom Thompson. So again, we're kind of shifting where Lakeshore is, and we're just creating the same situation as Tom Thompson. So we got to balance that out. There's a little bit more work to be done there. And Tecumseh, we're definitely blowing it up by adding zone 10 to it as well. So I think here we're there is a good amount.
Itself out.
10 is a big one that goes to Tom Thompson right now. And there's a good
At Tom Thompson in this option?
I-
Is they're too low?
Space.
Like if they're too low, can they just stay at Tom Thompson?
I think that's kind of where we might have to offshoot it. Because to your point, if Tecumseh were blowing it up, I think that one came because we had some commentaries in the options where 11 and 10 seemed to line up well, because it didn't make sense to have 11 go to Tecumseh, but 10 go down.
Which makes sense,
But-
at numbers. You gotta-
But it makes sense when you look at it on a map, but you got to remember 11 is bust regardless, whereas so is 10. But at a certain point, if it looks good on the map, doesn't necessarily mean there's a big
Really.
change. So to me, I'd say yes. I think 10 could probably stay at Tom Thompson in this, and then it addresses the Tecumseh issue. Kings Road, Maplehurst, same thing. Pineland unchanged. No major changes because we're just shifting some more Tecumseh kids over to them.
But you are.
The Pineland, yeah, because we're taking zones 11, 10. There's just not a lot of kids taking FI right now anyways. So it's already at Tom Thompson, they're not taking that many either. So like zone 11, for instance, I think we have 2 or 4 FI kids currently going to Tom Thompson for FI. So there's not a big uptake anyways. So albeit we're affecting the numbers at Pineland a bit, there's already not a lot of kids. So I don't see it making a huge impact. All right, 11B. This one here, maybe 10, Michelle will have to look at maybe keeping that Tom Thompson instead of sending it up. But anyway, very similar. But in this case here, instead of sending zone 10 over to Tecumseh, we're sending it up to Clarksdale. And same thing with the FI boundary, everything else is the same, but 10. Now that's, well, we have to fix it and send them to MMR. So to your point, yeah, it fixes the Tecumseh issue that we had earlier, which is a good thing. Clarksdale looks better. Rolling Meadows look better. Pineland, again, slight little change. Maybe to go back to the,
Better fix speed.
Yeah.
I think that might be a better iteration, Michelle, is sending 10 and keeping it at Tom Thompson, reducing the amount of impacted students, keeping Tom Thompson uplifted. Lakeshore still gets bump up in students. Should be an auctioneer. That's what I should have done. And then, yeah, I think that might be,
That moving them up to Clarksdale takes them sort of out of their walkability, even though everyone else tracks. Right now, the Tom Thompson little community feels like their community.
Yeah.
Feels like they're, and putting them up to Clarksdale means they have to get in the car to go to. For friends and like.
Can we make?
well, and I think that's get to go home. Definitely technical difficulties this evening. My apologies, guys. Yeah, let's look at it, Michelle, because I think it addresses the Tom Thompson issue here. Maybe it keeps them good, and we're kind of spreading the wealth a little bit more. Still, a lot of students impacted. It deals with the CUMSI issue, I think. Mitch? Oh. What happened? Oh, the sharing? Thank you. All right, so noted. That's why we got one more meeting. Okay. All right, so consensus on 11C then, send 10 down, right? Okay, cool. All right, so we'll get to it, but keep in mind, we're gonna can 11, 11B, we're gonna do 11C, and that'll be the one that we'll consider next week. Cool. All right. 11C will be moving 10 down instead, yeah. Got it. All right, 12. Oh yeah, this was this one. I'm gonna save my voice again. Colette, can I tap you to discuss what you discussed with the principal in terms of the dynamics for the 7 and 8s at Burlington Central? Because this was the option where we were looking at, because I love the number, we're only moving 50 kids, but this is the K to 5 and 6 to 12 option. So I'm gonna cue Colette because she spoke with Edmund.
Just to give you an idea of what the current configuration is for the 7s and 8s, and if we were to fold in the 6s into Burlington Central, the start time for 7s to 12 is the same. So all students enter the building together. They don't have a designated or separate entrance. They have a shared entrance with the high school students, shared stairwell. They do have a hallway. They've been do their best to keep the elementary students in that hallway and the high school students out of that hallway, but it's not always the case. There is some cross-pollination, we'll say. There's a shared gym where the students in elementary use the small gym and sometimes the large gym. That's walking through the main part of the high school to get to that area. The students do have some of their lunches in the cafeteria. I think that's really because the students in the 7 and 8 really wanted some CAF time. Now the lunch times are scheduled at a different time, but of course in a high school they're all the time, not just at breaks. We have kids on stairs who travel here and there. There's a 5-minute differential at the end of the day, but once the elementary kids are dismissed, they are dismissed to mix in with the greater population.
So we don't have a clear divide. So we were kind of questioning it last time around. So I just want to be abundantly clear where we talk about a hallway and separation, but there is a lot of mixing. There was some concerns brought up on the issue. So we definitely heard that. So we dove into a little bit, but anyway, I just wanted that to be clear that I can't guarantee that the 6s won't be mixing in with the high school. Now that's in your next. Remember the K to 12 model that I want to rebuild. If we were to do from scratch, it's definitely designed in such a way where there is that separation. The other models that are built throughout the province right now, there is more of a clear division between the two and the separation of space. So it'd be far less integrated. So I still think the ultimate vision is a K to 12 campus here with potentially sharing a wall, much like Hayden does with gymnasiums and stuff. But right now, I think we're a little bit limited with the existing facility that we have.
Yeah, I just, as a parent, just someone at Central, I did ask my child what the interaction was like. She did say, as you said, same doors entered in and out. Washrooms currently are separate, but if you open up another hallway, which is what you would have to do, like it's pretty packed, I'm not sure that would be feasible to contain the grade 6s to the grade 8s. The shared spaces obviously are the library, the gym, as you said, the music room, so there'd be interaction going there, the cafeteria, they're sitting and they're eating, but she said that kids come in and out of all ages, and the auditorium. Also, just to be aware, there is an ESL program there, and students are able to attend until they're 21. So you have the possibility of 10-year-olds. My kid is a December baby, so grade 6. They're 10 years old, interacting with 21-year-olds. Developmentally, I question the appropriateness.
We said we throw everything at the walls.
I know,
But
I know.
but that I was wondering why it went so well. Fair enough, but I do really appreciate that.
There are good things about the location. I don't know what it's like at Aldershot, but the shared recess space is very helpful. The 7s and 8s still have that, which is good.
I appreciate that.
I won't go, like, we wrote a lot of emails and I apologize. There was a lot about this option for 6. And I know it doesn't affect Aldershot, it's for Central. But the teachers even wrote and they found it absolutely inappropriate.
Yes.
There's exactly what you were saying. Age inappropriate elementary schools are built for elementary schools. There was the discussion about even like sports and
Yeah, that's a
extracurriculars.
huge one. How do you
Because
coordinate it?
you can't, it works like, anyways, there was just a lot, but it was really interesting to hear from the teachers themselves, like from Aldershot and from our elementary school, just as a teacher's perspective, where if they thought 6s were too young. Because some even think 7, 8 is inappropriate in the high school.
I was just gonna say, like, the teachers at
Because at Aldershot,
don't
they're
even
not
agree
happy.
with the
Yeah,
7
and I think
Yeah.
Aldershot's very different. I think from just because there is that.
We're
huge
not that
transfer.
separated.
My kid was
Yeah.
helping in the kindergarten room today, and she's in grade 7.
And we
right,
don't get that, yeah.
it's a little bit, but I still think.
And I don't know what the outdoor facility is like for the 7th and 8th here, but there's nothing at all. There's
Yeah.
nothing. They're literally walking around on a.
It's like a prison.
Yeah, and it's good because they have the elementary school there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this again. So we've explored it. If it was a different facility, I think it would be a different outcome, but we are where we are. However, look how great the numbers look. We can can it afterwards, but I think we achieved, and here Tom Thompson, we kept them kind of status quo, but we hit the 350 we were looking for. So things to be learned here, but yeah, we looked at it, not ideal. So I think we're in agreement there. All right, and last but certainly not least, lucky number 13. So in this case here, a couple more things. So here we're back to moving zones 1 and 2 out of Kings Road, except here we're splitting it up by Maple. So zone 1 and zone 3, we're going to be sending over to Lakeshore. So those are bust areas anyway. So we're sending them over to Lakeshore. Zone 4, we're maintaining at Central. Zone 2, we're moving from Kings Road over to Central because they're more contiguous. Zone 10 and 9, those 7 and 8s we're taking from Tecumseh. We're sending them to Burlington Central, 7 and 8s, just to line up those cohorts. Zone 12, we're sending to Lakeshore as well, just to balance that out. And Tom Thompson remains with 10, 11, 9. FI wise, again, further iteration of option 10. Zone 11 and zone TEC, we're sending that over to Pineland. So now they're aligned with Nelson. And then everyone else within the Burlington Central is going to Burlington Central. Zone 1 and 2 is going from Maplehurst over to Central Public. Zone 12, which is currently going to Tecumseh, is now, wait a minute. Yeah, but I think that's always been going to Tom. Disregard that little box. Anyways, so in this case here, we've lined up all cohorts. Central, we're kind of bringing them up to that capacity, but might be able to swing it. Maybe an extra portable. Lakeshore, we're definitely uplifting your numbers, so we're at a higher rate. Down the road, again, you might see some portables. We'll see. But again, that's development. So we're 5 years out. Hopefully, we've got some kind of outcome. Tom Thompson, we do see quite the dip initially, but we build that back up over time. So we get around that 350 mark. Tecumseh overall, long term, looks good. Burlington Central, generally the same. Kings Road, slight drop with zones 1 and 2. And Maplehurst, again, slight drop with the FI being removed from zone 1 and 2. Pineland, minor changes with the inclusion of zone 11 and Tecumseh going over to them for FI. That's option 13.
Not as crazy as yours.
Oh, come on, just a little crazy. Absolutely.
So could we not? And this is our English track. But the French immersion stays at Tom Thompson. But 10 would go up to Clark. Can you split? Sorry, we're just trying to think of a way that if you kept French immersion at Tom Thompson to decrease the numbers, and 10 for me is standing out, so moving it out.
Would the English numbers be too low though, like in class sizes?
That's
Like, I think,
67.
oh, like, and you were saying that someone else is saying 10
The train tracks.
once, like,
Say,
yeah. So like, that's why we were like 11C for the English track looks very
It's like
clean
that.
and
Zone
correct.
4 is with
and with the 1 and 2 being at Central, and then the clean 3, 4, 7, 8, 12 at Lakeshore, and the only change being 10 going back to Tom Thompson, which somebody said was desirable.
I think I can also argue that 1, 3, oh, sorry, not 1, 3 and 4 also want to stay at Central. Like, I think we can argue that everyone wants to stay at
Everyone
Central.
wants to.
But transportation wise, so I'll counter, but I'll with you. So I don't know what I'm saying. Romer, zone 3, they're transported right to Central.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, so they'd be transported otherwise. And I believe zone 1, because of Maple, they're also transported to wherever they're going, right? Even Central.
They're at,
No, but I mean, if they were to, because of the division, the division of Maple, whether they're going to Kings or whether they're going to Central or whether they're going to Lakeshore, they're going to be bused regardless, right? That's-
I don't, so I live on the other side of Maple and I am not eligible to be bused. I'm closer towards, I'm further down.
Yeah.
No, I'm up more, right in the corner, down. Right? Yeah, I'm right there and I'm not eligible and I'm on the other side.
The crossing guard in Brown Renaissance.
No,
And I think that is one also a big part of the busing. Busing up to might change the budgetary.
the distance, but some of these might be exemption areas. So, I mean,
I get what you're saying. but
Yeah.
Also, is 10 bust? Like, that's another,
Yeah.
10 is bust, yeah.
like
10 is bust, but
three bust.
they've got a connection. Like I said, there's more of a connection here because you do have the bridge that they just reconstructed.
Can you
So,
review all the ones that are bust, all the zones that are bust currently?
Romer, you're gonna have to tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. Zone 11's bust. Zone 10 is bust. And these are bust regardless of where they're going. I'm pretty sure. So 10, we continue to bust regardless. 11, we bust. 1 and 2 are currently bust, but we'll have to review.
we'll review the situation for those areas west of Maple.
Zone 3 right now, they're at Central. Are they bust or?
Majority, yes.
So zone 3 is bus based on distance.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from Pika is that it is not based on exemption area.
Okay. So in that case here, I think there's maybe a little, who's got the walk web on them?
And then the other question is, would one be bust to Central if they went to Central, or is that close enough?
Romer, can we confirm that one?
Yeah, I'll confirm that with,
So like.
Thank you. All right, so we'll reconfirm that. And I guess here we're keeping them contiguous because it's the whole Maple area. So that's kind of what we were thinking. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that walk map is not lining up with what Pika
What
is
I'm
telling us
seeing.
from first-hand experience. So Romer's gonna take it back.
I'll take it back.
Yep, let's take it back. Okay. All right, so we'll take that one back. Cree's idea, but so what I'm hearing is that we want an option that has FI staying at Tom Thompson.
We're listening to what you're saying, and I'm just trying to figure out what is the way What is the way to do that? With the least amount of.
I think what we need to, sorry, go ahead.
Same thing.
In conversations, if there are all schools with under enrollment. And I have schools, my schools are under enrollment. So I look at that and I think, although we're solving the problem, we don't need to solve the problem of top class anymore because it's okay and fine. We still have schools that have no people. And that's a big problem because they don't have the resources that Thompson is now afraid to do.
Correct.
So I just don't think, I think we need to recognize that although we don't want to move one problem from one school to another, we do want to try to balance it so that the schools that don't have the resources are able to get some.
I don't disagree with that. I think there's opportunities there. I just don't think we have to go as hard with the amount that we're removing. And that's why we were tossing around 350 in the last meeting as being kind of like, I think, a reasonably good spot. So if we're in around there, plus or minus, I think that helps. And I think there's opportunities definitely for Lakeshore and maybe even taking some of the pressure off Central. Because Central, again, like we're near the line, but we still have 2 portables on site because there are challenges with the facility in terms of how we can accommodate for students because it's primary model and there might be some areas not as accessible. So I'm with you. Like,
How do we reduce numbers at Tom Thompson? Now we're told we don't need to do that anymore. So
we don't have to go as hard, is what I'm saying.
Because we've done all this deep dive into all the schools and they're recognizing that although the Tom Thompson problem is a problem, there are also these other existing problems that we weren't told. And now that we know about them and they're in our heads and we're thinking about those budgets and those lacks of resources. If that's that piece too, that I have to think.
Well, and that's why I want to see, like, can we make a new iteration of where Tom Thompson keeps FI, but what can we take elsewhere to help with the other schools? I think that's the minor little changes we can start looking at. Can we fix the split? Like, I don't want to say like we're done, we're just keeping it the way it is. No, we still have work to do. It's just the level as to which we're going. Yeah.
I think it's been said before too, like just because they're moving or potentially moving FI from Tom Thompson to Lakeshore, that doesn't mean, or sorry, to Central, doesn't mean that all those FI kids are gonna go. Some of them might just stay at Tom Thompson English track.
Which is in the production, that is included at 15% nutrition.
Yeah.
And the 350 number at TT, is that what they would, like the ideal number for them to maintain their current resource? Like,
I think you'd still lose some resources, but at least at 350, 370, you've got, if you look at it like 2 classes per grade, like we talked about the last meeting, like that's where you end up around the 360, 370. So if you're doing 2 kinders, 2 seniors, 2 ones, et cetera, you get to that level. So at least you have that flexibility. So they won't have the same exact resources, but at least they're not going down to 200, which is kind of the issues that we're having at Lakeshore. Well, yeah, and it's just, it becomes too like smaller. It's getting hard to manage. So it's a balancing there. Okay. So I guess the question is like, what can we add to Lakeshore to top them up without too much impacting Central, and looking at Tom Thompson as to what we can maybe move around in order to reduce their enrollment, but kind of share the accommodations, or sorry, share the students.
And I think the other piece we have to think about too is I know that there's a lot of people and the voices are loud through the emails and everything else. And I understand why, like 10 wants to stay with Tom Thompson because that's where their friends are, and 4 wants to stay. But I think we also do have to have, all of us have to look at the long-term impact too of keeping Lakeshore populated and keeping all of these pieces. Because I hear too, my daughter's best friends are in 10, but I'm like, but that's only the next 2 or 3 years. So like I can't do that as my top priority.
Yeah.
Right. And we have 11 that's resourced really heavily by Tecumseh. To me, that outweighs friendships and but I can't go here and there.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of priorities.
It's tough one because everyone in this room doesn't want to move have their children moved. Okay, there's no one in here saying I want to move my children. So we're looking at different resources, and we have to use the resources that we have. And if we're not using resources, then alone the portables. How many portables are we using in this zone right now?
9?
Ballpark.
I believe 9. We have 2 at Central and 7 at Tom
So
Thompson.
if we that should be one of the objectives, at least to get the portables off if we can. If we can move children around to get the portables off and get full use of the schools and not have portables somewhere, could not that be something you look at too?
It is. And it's just, is the portables not being there? Because then we get down to the Lakeshore levels of enrollment. So I think Tom Thompson, what I was trying to get at last meeting is I think portables are going to be a reality of that school until we can build it to a point that it's large enough. So I think having a 6-pack there is not the end of the world. Central, ideally, we don't have a lot of land, so it'd be better if we didn't have any portables at Central. So I think it's what is the level of comfort on, because I've heard it for Zone 4 doesn't want to move, Zone 3 doesn't want to move. Like, I think there's definitely clear connections here for Lakeshore that we can top up very well with Lakeshore. Zone 5 is another one, like it's right down the road, but then we're losing. Well, that's the thing, no one wants to. So what? Who's moving? Oh, you can bike from 5, or is 4 on the Lakeshore. And that's the thing, they're all great schools. It's just, it's the initial Band-Aid removal and then we're happy, but then we want to make sure that you still have a good sustainable population. So, all right, I think we should break out, maybe talk about development of options. Go ahead.
Is it because they recently went through a boundary review?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because they're right there. If we're looking at moving some, I'm just curious why they weren't involved. There's something.
Sorry, no, it was the latter part of they're right there, and then I was thinking sending some kids over to Lakeshore. They weren't involved. I had an answer this 2 weeks ago, and I forget. No, it's.
But they're right there.
But I think it was they're stable. Like their projections, their enrollment is stable.
Like, I don't see the movement of their students yet. I guess we can send them to Lakeshore.
Why they weren't involved, because everyone else is involved.
The primary reason was the Tom Thompson piece and the big FI thing. So it was always part of our LTAP to look at how do we increase Pineland's numbers to bring them back up because they were declining. Was Tom Thompson, which had the portables, do we just send them to Pineland? And then we saw Lakeshore was declining. We saw some split cohorts that weren't there, or that weren't aligning. So that's why we focused on that. And Tuck, to your point, they went through a review, and I don't necessarily think there was much changes that we could have looked at. They would have looked. So we just wanted to keep that community stable, let it ride it out, and then see how we can adjust things west of the Guelph line. That was the main focus. The reason Pineland and McQuendam were involved is because McQuendam's tied to Tecumseh. They did have a lot of empty space, so we can see if we can make use of that. But again, the challenge we're having is we don't really, they're a K to 6. So again, we're having to have them jump around so we didn't do much with McQuendam. I don't have a great, Michelle, do you have a better answer I hope you have a better answer than me why we didn't involve Tuck? I know we talked about it, just escapes me.
Again, they've been through the review in the compact committee. And they do have a split board.
Are they going away the portables over time, or is it I'll take that back. Maybe there's a better answer, but yeah, for me, that's why we focused west of Guelph line. Fair question though. All right, next step. Yeah, no, I think it's break for cookie time. So we're gonna do, we'll do the groups. It's a good time to break out. If you're all with your own peers, maybe it's worth moving around a bit. Otherwise, yeah, maybe we'll just move around in different groups. A, B, C. after you've taken a break and all that, I know it's been a long run. Let's maybe just jump onto the Menti, get rid of some of the options, and then we can focus our conversation on shoot. Flip of the finger. And then we'll get right back to it. All right, guys. Thanks again for the great discussion. Let's do a debrief and then see where we landed on it. So who wants to kick us off? Oh, we're starting to record again too, so FYI.
Okay, we'll start.
Thank you.
Okay, we were done in a couple minutes.
What about?
Just like last week, quick and simple. We like the French version for 13, option 13, French. Good. We are suggesting 13A, where 1 gets sent to Central so that they stay with 2. 1 and 2 seem to be kind of pals on the bus to King Road, so you might as well keep them pals to Central. And 4 goes to Lakeshore so that you keep that band, but everything else I think should.
That's 39 students.
39 students in 4, 8 in 1.
The suggestion we had was on zone 4 there, Elgin, which is about let's call it are you metric or imperial? I'm just kidding. 5 mils south of that red line to the north. So maybe doing that so that they're from what we've heard from 4, that's probably an easier shot up to Central, and then that way you still have that lakeshore belt that goes all the way over.
That's a fine tune.
We're cool with that.
You're cool with that?
Yeah.
All right, we cool then. All right.
Should go to Central. Those 8 kids should stick with number 2.
And then we're moving the right numbers into the
Yeah. Then we're moving more into Lakeshore.
All right. Wonderful. That's it. What about 11C? You guys still good with exploring that one?
Yeah, but they described the
Literally
level.
Yeah, that's exactly what we
Exactly.
said.
Oh, well, there you
They
go.
modified.
Yeah.
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 So-
11 is really just 10 going to Tom Thompson.
That's
Oh,
it.
yeah, you're right.
So same, exact same.
Wonderful. All right.
About 10 too was that if French immersion stays at Tom Thompson, then 10 should go to Tecumseh rather than go to Clarksdale. But if Central's the hub for French immersion, then 10 stays at Tom Thompson. Numbers.
All right.
Yeah.
Shell, you got that?
Done.
All right, well, we got to record. Thank you. Okay. All right. We'll do table. I think you were table A. Table A. C. Table C.
Yeah, we came to the same conclusion.
Yeah. And we said the same thing.
Can I just say one thing? I have an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, hit me up. It can't be worse than mine.
It's not worse. Okay, so I know you guys want to keep 1 and 2 together because they're bus buddies. My only concern is that 1 and 3, if you were to look at the northern part of 3, it's very much a continuous neighborhood. If you were to pull it up on Google Maps, 1 and 3, that purple line, I don't know. There's no barrier. There's no boundary there. My theory is just that those kids, in terms of, trick or treating and play dates, they would just walk down that one street. The courts are connected. It's the same neighborhood.
The south part of 1, the north part of 3 are actually.
Yeah, it's the same community. So that's my only concern. And I just think 1 and 3 just cohesively should go to the same place. But I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, it's so hard to say, right? Because 1 and 2 are together now.
Yeah.
1 and 3 are separate now. Like I said, just my experience. At this time we're the Lockhart Village. Yes, I understand. We are connected, but we're separate now.
This is like an immediate friendship problem that will resolve itself in 4 years.
Yeah.
It's just you sort this out with how you transition things over.
If you move that line once, you're gonna move it twice. If you move it twice, you move it 3 times. Just you're gonna, okay, now Tuesday now knows this is to go to Camp with Debbie. You've got to be firm with the line. You can't keep moving the line just to
Well, doesn't that support the argument here
I'm
that,
not sure what your debate is, I'm just.
yeah, I think you guys are saying
Okay,
the same thing,
I'm
but
just saying
differently.
between 1 and 2, that is a barrier. That is Maple. Kids are not jumping across and playing with their friends. But the 1 and 3 little thin purple line, there's no barrier there. That's actually a neighborhood.
But aren't they currently at different schools right now?
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
one
okay.
was moved over to Kings Road. So my idea is, why are we not reuniting this neighborhood finally?
Is it a problem right now? Like, do people feel the divide because different schools?
Yeah, I don't think there's.
I'm just curious.
You live there.
You
I
live
live
there.
in one, yes, I live in one. But again, kind of my opinion is it's hard, right? They're separate now. So it's not like all of a sudden someone in zone 1 is gonna be like, oh, now, I get to go to school with someone in zone 3 all of a sudden. They've done it already.
But I
There's
think we're-
there's 8
And
kids
there's
in
8
one.
kids in one.
What's the likelihood of there being the same cohort that lives in 3?
Well, here's the question then is, so we heard the whole concept of, I'm going to go to St. John's if I don't go to the school I want. So could there be potentially more kids that live in zone 1 that otherwise are not going to Kings Road because they would prefer to go to their local school? So I think in part, if I were to, well, let me ask you this, Romer, I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm pretty sure that this is entirely St. John's. So 1 and 3, there's no divide. Like, they're all going to St. John's, right? From memory. So if we were to just blow this all up again, if I were to redraw these lines that aren't legacy, I think I'm with you. I don't think I would have drawn that line.
it's the same.
It's the
I
same.
think there's only a line there because at some point, I don't know when this boundary review had happened.
Before my time.
One was set there. Did you do this 10 years
I did.
ago?
No, I wasn't here 10 years ago. I was at the Catholic.
I don't know why one was set there. That's why a line is drawn, but that is the same neighborhood.
Well, and that's where I'm with you. So like, there's not a lot of kids there, but maybe there would be more kids that would go to the same school. So I hear what you're saying, and I see more of a connection with 1 and 3 than I do with 1 and 2 because of the crossing of Maple. I think 1 and 2 were, Michelle, like, I think, were they always 2, like, were you around for the 1-2 or? Okay, so this is like 20 plus years ago. So,
Oh, that long ago?
So that
oh
was
yeah.
11C with adding 1 onto the lake shore.
I also think that's such a small
Is that correct?
modification that
It's essentially a cul-de-sac. Yeah, 'cause the majority of it, half of it's a park. You got some background, Robbie, on 1 and 2?
13.
In terms of,
Sorry. You want them?
Which
You want to take 13?
Any angle.
you had most of what's laid out here in terms of the big question is Maple is a physical barrier and 1 and 2 are currently together at Kings Road. I have an anecdote of one, but I know of one parent who has told me flat out, they live in section 1, thought that they were going to Central, heard that they were going to Kings Road, went, nope, and enrolled in Catholic school. So you might get some enrollment.
You're saying 1 and 2 should stay together because they're together right now.
I'm not
That is
saying
cool.
that.
No.
I'm saying that either approach is defensible.
Didn't
You
you
could
say
have 1 and
that?
2 together, you could have 1 and 3 together.
No, that's not what Robbie said. So I guess back to the bus buddy thing and back to the friendship piece. I think I'm still good with your option, but I still think, are we good with doing 1, 3 more contiguous and 2s more?
Yeah, I think it's small.
Okay, cool. So we were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, 2 we would leave at Central, 1 we would combine with 3, and then
And the kids.
Well, but it might be.
But it could be more.
over time, but yeah, today.
So that's 13 with the 4 mod, that's what we're talking about right
I
now.
think that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
13 option with 4 being modded to have half of that be Lake Shore, half of that, half.
That's exactly.
That's 4 getting into Lakeshore with the 30.
So
The vast majority of 4, we'll cut it off at Elgin with the south side and the north side of Elgin going to Central. And then all the backyards on Elgin are going to go down the lake shore, down that full spine, straight across.
100 kids. There's hardly any transition.
100? Sorry.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 together are
Oh,
100 kids.
I thought you meant just 4. I was like, all 3. Yeah.
1, 3, and 4 is like 100 kids. That's why I suggested keep it down.
Sorry, Michelle.
saying that it's gonna take 2 minutes.
One to Lake Shore.
Lake Shore.
1-3 South Florida Lake Shore. We'll look at it. Yeah. I think that takes a little bit more pressure off of Central, so we avoid portables too for the long term. So we'll take a look at that one.
So are you changing zone 1-3? And then just have zone 3 be the beach?
No, it's option 13. So
Or zone 1 now.
So we're gonna, this part of zone 4 down here, where my hand is, this I'm gonna move over to Lake Shore. And then this part of zone 4 is gonna stay at Central.
Yeah. Just getting rid of the division between.
We're keeping these together, so you're gonna have the,
Now that's just all one.
yeah.
This is straight up.
All right, so that's one option. That's the,
Yeah, with that option, what do we do with French immersion?
that option, this French immersion's going to Central in this one.
No,
Uh,
Okay.
So Tom Thompson, we get back to where we wanted to go. So like, and admittedly, we've been talking about, I would have liked to visit all these tables, but we'd be here by 10 or 4:10. We're going to take a look at 6 and 5 and see if there's any way we can maybe balance things out a little bit there too. It's a tough one. I'm not committing that we'll find anything, but there's a couple outlets that we're going to look into and see if there's maybe some tweaking we can do there, which will help with Tom. So there's, like I said, I can't cut it straight across down. That's a horrible sketch. I mean, put a map line.
There you go.
It's getting late, guys. It's getting late.
But like that side.
I can't cut it straight across because these are all curvilinear roads, whereas on the west side here, they're all grids. I love grids. Don't like curvilinear, but anyway, I can't really cut it nicely. So there might be like, there's a nice crescent here that I might be able to slice and dice and see if it makes sense. But if it doesn't, then I'd rather not do it. And the same thing down here, there's a couple of little spots where they loop up that maybe we can look at. So we might tweak that up and bring it back to the next meeting.
For this 13, can you show us all the charts of the numbers for all
Yeah.
the school?
You just told me you want to do that earlier.
I don't, but if they're closer and we can, like, if there's just to uplift a bit of Tom Thompson, I'll have a look at it, but I'm not.
Let's see what Tom Thompson is in this.
Yeah.
Which by removing 4, it might address the concerns I have with Central in terms of the overutilization. So that's what I mean. I'm gonna look at it. It was brought up. I'm gonna check it out and we'll report back on it. But yeah, call me out on it next time. That's what we're doing this for. Yeah, so Lakeshore, this might increase Lakeshore a bit too much, so we'll have to see.
We don't mind. We don't mind. We'll take a portable.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to take it back and tweak it. Like, there's no perfect solution. But yeah, here in removing F5, we're dropping down to 279. Then we're coming back up to like 320s. So we could get, like, again, I'm trying to get to that 350 mark, but we're getting there. Tecumseh, we're looking good. Burlington Central, Kings Road, again, there's that drop with 1 and 2. We're still in the high 2s there, so hopefully we can throw some growth down there. Maplehurst, minor changes with the FI. Pineland, again, just the minor changes with FI from zones 11 and Tech. That's
Legitimately leave Bible program. Like, I have a little bit of.
I feel a lot better here. I feel a lot better here than I did with the other ones where it's really dropping it. So I'd like to push a little bit more enrollment this way. And that's why I'm maybe exploring the 6 cuts to see if there's something, because we heard that used to walk there.
I did. I mean, it was the night.
Well, I'm also from the 1900s, so
Prospect, and I survived.
Some parents in Central that are in zone 6. And obviously they don't want to move, right? But they did say that it's not a far cry to go to Tom Thompson. In fact, it's not what they want, but again, no one wants to move, but it does make sense. It's still walkable. It's still.
And here's the costing piece and the phase-in piece that we could talk about too. Because they're so close, we're not creating bust areas. They're already walking the Central. So like there can be that transition where, yeah, keep going to Central, graduate out. And then eventually, you know, the new ones, you go to Tom Thompson. So we can balance that out too without immediately impacting. It draws it out, but seeing there's no transportation cost because there is no transportation, it's not as impactful. So I think that's why it's worth looking at bolstering Tom Thompson for removing FI. I still want to, and I'll probably close with this because I don't think we've really reviewed an option where Tom Thompson keeps FI. So I'd like to, if we go to the community, there should be one option with Central, one option with Tom Thompson.
Yeah. I agree. My challenge is from a community perspective, if we go to them and say, we're shuffling all these kids around a little bit, but all the programs are staying the same, I'm not sure optically that'll be very well received.
You're probably right, but we looked at it because I think there's two viable pieces. And to, like, I would not want to go to the community with just one option and with just minor tweaks. I think we have to have good contrasting options and maybe a third if we find one. I'm surprised, but I think we're like kind of at two decent options. I think it also worthwhile to say it's not like we sat on our hands and didn't do anything. We went through a lot of options. We threw everything at the wall and we've weighed all of the criteria. So I think in our next meeting is let's hone in on those two options. Let's really think about the criteria. Let's think about implementation of, do we phase it in? Do we grandparent a little bit more, being cognizant of transportation, get that up in front? And at least that way the community can call us out and say, we did all this for what? We looked at all your options and this is what we're coming up with, and we just lay it all out.
I'm saying that message will be very clear to the community, getting those out to them, is like, we weighed 40,000 options.
I hope it is, but that's why, and Mitch kind of reached out, we do need a parent volunteer to speak at the meeting. So you can just blame me and just as like it's Fred's fault, but I'd love to have a parent voice. So if one of you or maybe a couple of you want to volunteer and kind of explain to the community and give your voice as to what your experience was with this process and like what we went through. And to your point, we looked at all the options, we laid it all out, and we were listening to the community and providing their feedback. I think that goes a long way, and it's typically part of our process.
Could you, for the next meeting, with the ideas that we put on the table tonight, can you give us the exact numbers of student groups for those areas to be introduced?
And sorry, what are the two options that you said we're going to review? Two options.
Well, there's the 13, and then there's going to be the Tom Thompson where it stays, and I'm going to just fix all of the split cohorts. So
Are you moving area 10 in that scenario or not?
I don't know yet. I don't think so, but I will get back to you.
So what are the numbers? You know, the number of students that would have, total number of students affected if we, with the proposals we're putting out now?
Well, we had them, so 13, we've got kind of a ballpark of 175. So in this, that'll probably increase with the moves from zone 4. Yeah, under 200. And again, this assumes that we're moving everybody like K to 5. If we start looking at transition planning, like that could be lessened. So I think that's something we have to be cognizant of. So we could probably work out ballpark what those numbers would look like.
When we're looking at implementation, sort of like our next steps of these options, can you provide us with like budgetary numbers? It's like I have zero concept of you know what the transportation cost versus the cost of having kids in a portable, right? Like I can make some assumptions on what the difference in that cost is, but if we're talking about by like what this looks
like what we currently spend on the portables and busing versus what the new options look like.
Yeah,
compare them, right?
I'm thinking this.
Portable price compare the bus,
Like something
the bus
that tells
tells
people that we did positive.
if part of part of our responsibility is to take into account a little bit of fiscal responsibility, given the fact that, you know, we're a $7 million deficit and it's 14 next year. Like, does that need to be part of our conversation when we're looking at, hey, what options are we presenting to the community with this little asterisk of we have taken fiscal responsibility into consideration when we're looking at these?
I'll see what I can do, because sometimes it's hard to quantify exactly the cost. So we'd have to look at how many portables we'd be removing. Transportation wise, what I will say is if we are duplicating transportation, I'm far less likely to roll out as much legacy exemption. But if you're walking and you're walking, to me, it's the same. Or if I would otherwise, if I'm transporting you now and then I would not transport you after, as long as I'm not duplicating costs, I'm more likely to maybe recommend more legacy exemption to the BRSC and then to senior exec. And that's where I'm being cognizant of it. So it's balancing the fiscal responsibility with student experience too, and lessening it. And thankfully they're K to 6s, so it's not as long of an implementation. We outright always legacy exempt the 5s because we want them to graduate out. So it's hard how far down we go and go from there. So to cost it out to the dollar, I'd probably say it'd be difficult. But if we're saying we're adding a bus or two in this option, I could probably cost that out as, you know, it's rough estimate like 70,000 for a bus, divided by 3, because usually we run 3 runs to a bus. So
I think it's important to see that, like, the difference busing and versus already a section that's being bused, right?
well, we'll try to put something together like that. Okay, heard.
Will we get a breakdown of, we know how many students are in each zone. Will we get a breakdown of by grade? How many grade 6s, how many grade 5s, how many grade 4s? Do we have those numbers?
Of who's moving or
No,
by,
just if I was to ask in zone 4, how many grade
Oh.
6s are there? How many grade 5s are there?
we have it, but to be like, if you
Or is
ask me
that something to consider when we look at legacy?
exemption, how many kids? Let me converse with Michelle, or Michelle, if you want to contribute now. I'm trying to work it out if it does matter. A little bit louder, Michelle. I didn't look at it that way. So
And then one more thing in terms of the March 11th meeting.
the PIM, yes.
Yes, a few have asked if that will be, if there will be a virtual option or just in person.
So we were gonna talk about, I'm thinking what we could do is like have a pre-recorded for the virtual, so you can have a look at the meeting, like kind of the slide deck we would present. And then the feedback form will be available before the meeting, so they'll be able to fill that out. So yeah, they can get all the information there. And then the in-person will be more of like a, oh, the word escapes me right now. No, more like there'd be like stations. We'll have like numbers, and that's more of, you know, you'd walk around and you'd be able to talk. So we'd probably have a canned presentation, and then we'll just have like conversations like we have, and just, you know, hearing parent responses and then encouraging them to fill out the feedback survey afterwards.
Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, there's a question here.
Oh, I was just gonna say, who makes the legacy exemption decisions? Yeah, like,
We're going to discuss it as a boundary review committee on what we think is recommended. That recommendation there goes to the boundary review steering committee, which is comprised of trustees, senior exec, and planning services, among others. Then that goes to the senior council, which is all the PSOs as well as the director of ed. Then that final recommendation goes to trustees, and they make the final call. And along the way, things can change. So I do want to let you know about that. So there might be tweaks and balances that happen along the way. And ultimately it goes to trustees. And when it goes to trustees, you do have the opportunity to delegate as well, if things don't go the way. So the community has that opportunity as well. All right. So to recap, we've got 13. We're going to come up with another option for status quo, Tom Thompson, and those are our 2 options. So I again appreciate all the discussion tonight. I appreciate the concerns, and the time that you've given it to tonight. So thanks everyone again. We will see you at our next meeting and then move on to next steps.